so it was that I found myself in Judgipoo's court. The tropical vines and flowers were looking wilted, so my client's daughter contrived to get Judgipoo to give them a steam bath. Judgipoo's ears must have been bright red and somewhat painful by the time she let him turn off the spigot. I had requested a change of venue from Judgipoo in this particular case. I didn't want a different judge. Judgipoo can be terrifying, but he generally does the right thing. And as a lawyer, I find that quality more helpful than sweetness and charm in a judge. Judgipoo did not find that we were entitled to a change of venue, and that is when the fun began. The only reason I had asked for a different judge was because my client insisted. Judgipoo's conduct at the last hearing was typically loud and frightening. If you practice in his court as much as I do, your ears and your psyche develop calluses of gargantuan proportion. God himself would find it difficult to say something rude enough to bring you to anger or tears after a session with Judgipoo. In fact, Judgipoo might be able to cause the Almighty to choke back a rainstorm or two if he was in good form. Since my clients don't have the practice I do, or the need for an occasional steam bath that the courtroom's tropical flora enjoy, they tend to take Judgipoo's diatribes personally. My client was sure that Judgipoo didn't like her, me, her daughter, or the horse we rode in on. Actually, it was my dog Guide, and we didn't really ride him. But they were convinced that we were not on his honor's Christmas list, and they did not think they would get a fair hearing in his court.
I know you hate me. You've treated me like an idiot since I was here on my juvenile case. Well, let me tell you, I'm sick of it. I know you hate me, and I think Miss Uttermolin's right, and that we should have another judge. You are mean and hateful, and I don't think you'll ever be fair to me.
Judgipoo tried to interrupt calmly for him, I thought, but our heroine continued.
You think everyone is stupid? You want everyone to be afraid of you. Well, I'm not afraid anymore. I hate your guts and think you should not be a judge.
You would be amazed how tight it was under the rock I crawled beneath. The court reporter and my dog had gotten there first, and they weren't anxious to share. We could still hear the proceedings. Maybe there would have been more room if we all hadn't been shaking so hard.
Young lady, when you keep talking after I've told you to quit, it is called contempt of court.
Judgipoo thundered. You would think that announcement would have given Miss Thing pause, but she was on a roll.
I'm just telling you the truth. You always go out of your way to make me feel this small. I know you hate my guts, but let me tell you, the feeling is mutual.
My client's mother and I were finally able to convince Miss Thing that the food in jail wasn't worth all the effort she was putting into finding out how it tasted for herself. Judgipoo didn't find her in contempt, although I was nervous enough to do it for him at that point. And when I finally left, I am happy to report all the tropical vines and flowers in Judgipoo's courtroom were plump and well-fed, and my ears were killing me. Judgipoo set a new hearing, so the fun continued. And so it was that Miss Thing and Judgipoo met again. Amazingly, Miss Thing stayed calm. Except for a sentimental journey when Judgipoo recalled the last hearing when Miss Thing told him where he could go, and the destination she had in mind wasn't his chambers. Judgipoo stayed calm with Miss Thing for the most part. I was not so fortunate. The Venus lawyer Traps had a snack when Judgipoo snarled at me for trying to give school reports and counselors' reports instead of subpoenaing witnesses. I pointed out to him that he usually accepted the kind of documents I was submitting, and that I had objected to their admission to no avail on a number of occasions. He said that the reason he was so kind to my opposition at those times was that their witnesses were from other towns. I reminded him that the nature of the evidence didn't change just because it was local, and frankly, I didn't know what he expected from me. That shut him up, and my heart slowed down and dislodged itself from my throat. The hearing continued. Judgipoo gave his usual lecture that no one was telling him anything that would help him make his decision. I called every one of the witnesses my client insisted on having me call, and the hearing came to a merciful end. To his credit, Judgipoo told everyone in the audience that it was nothing personal when he yelled at me, and that I had indeed presented a fine case. I helped him out by saying, I can vouch for that. Judgipoo and I yell at each other all the time. It's nothing personal. After all, the previously mentioned Venus lawyer Traps had had their fill, and my ears were blistered enough, thank you. Can anyone spare me some Lanacane?